Today we shall go through legal changes in water allocation and role of local institutions and community-based organizations in water governance and water policy. We know that water is a finite resource and has got many uses which are interdependent. For that purpose, the water resource is to be allocated for different uses or different sectors of the water. Let us see what are the priorities in the water allocations. In all allocations of water by governments at any level or by any other duly authorized body or agency or institution, public or private, the first and overriding priority shall be for water for life, followed by water required for all other uses, water for livelihoods for vulnerable sections, water as a social good and water for agricultural, industrial, commercial, recreational and other uses. The allocating agency, that may be a government organization or an institution, or the body which is entrusted with that responsibility, may be a public or private. The first and the overriding priority that they are supposed to allocate the water for the very existence of life, then followed by water required for other uses like water for livelihoods for vulnerable sections, water as a social good, water for agriculture, industrial, commercial, recreational, and other uses. The inter se priorities in allocations for different water uses other than water for life shall be as determined by the appropriate authorities or agencies with reference to the local circumstances such as local climate, land and soil characteristics, water availability, prevalent activities and livelihoods, and the land uses indicated by those circumstances. Once the water is allocated for the very existence of life, then depending on the local circumstances or the local necessities or needs, such as local climate, land and soil characteristics, water availability in that area, prevalent activities and livelihoods of that area, and land use pattern of that particular area may be taken into consideration by the appropriate authorities for allocation of the water. Water allocation planning involves consideration of the total water resource available within the basin. This can include surface and groundwater supplies as well as water from inter-basin transfers. The allocation planning involves the quantity of available water in that particular basin or the area under consideration, and it shall include the both surface as well as the groundwater. Also sometimes it can consider if there is an interbasin transfer. The amount of water available for allocation will be a function of this total volume. The available water for allocation shall be taken into account the volume available with the surface and groundwater supply as well as the interbasin transfer minus the following entities: water that cannot be in practice be used, water that cannot in practice be used. So there may be a certain quantity of water which cannot be used for the different uses as mentioned above. So we have to deduct such quantity of water. For example, water that cannot be stored or used and passes during uncontrolled flooding. So we have got some uncontrolled processes like during flood, we cannot hold certain quantity of water, but it is a resource available in that particular basin, but we are unable to store it or hold it during the flood times. So such water, even though for estimation purpose we take that the discharge or the flood discharge in that basin, but it cannot be used for the usable purposes. Water retained in the river system to meet ecological needs, that is environmental flow, and we have to provide a certain minimum flow in the river system for to meet the ecological needs, that is also called as environmental flow. that also we cannot use for the human activities. So that is, you have to deduct from the available water. Establishing a water action plan now commonly involves a detailed situation assessment to identify water availability, existing water use and expected future demand, and water requirements for environmental purposes. So, water allocation plan takes into account the detailed situation assessment of the particular basin. It has to identify water availability, existing water uses, the pattern how the existing water is being used, and expected future demand. We have to look into the future also, and we have to assess the future demands and water requirements for environmental purposes. This information is used to develop different allocation scenarios which can be assessed based on their social, economic, and environmental consequences. Taking into consideration these factors, the allocation scenarios are to be assessed keeping in mind the socio-economic and environmental consequences of the allocation. What are the objectives involved in allocation of water basin? Allocation planning is typically undertaken to achieve a series of overarching objectives. In many jurisdictions, these now include the following objectives are included in the allocation planning. One is equity, allocating water in a way that is fair and equitable amongst different regions and user groups. Water is to be distributed equally among the different regions and also different user groups. This can include equity between different administrative regions and between upstream and downstream areas. We know that the availability of the water is varying spatially and temporally. So we are supposed to distribute the water equally for different regions. It may be between different administrative regions, and it may be regions contained in a basin, that is upstream and downstream areas. Environmental protection, allocating water in a way that recognizes the needs of freshwater dependent ecosystem and protects key freshwater services such as sediment transport, groundwater recharge, waste assimilation, and estuarine functioning. We are supposed to allocate the water for environmental protection purpose also. We have to allocate the water, fresh water, depending for the dependence dependent ecosystem and which protect the key freshwater services. So we have to allocate the water for the ecosystem which is dependent on the fresh water, as well as also we have to keep in mind the activities like sediment transport, groundwater recharge, waste assimilation capacity of the water body, and estuarine functioning while allocating the water for environmental protection purposes. Development priorities, allocating water in a way that supports and promotes economic and social development. This can include supporting strategic priorities and protecting existing dependencies. We have to keep in mind while allocating the water for developmental priorities that the such allocation should promote the economic and social development of that particular basin. Also, it shall include the supporting strategic priorities and protecting existing dependencies. If already there are some dependencies on that water resource, we have to keep it in mind. Also, we have to give the priority for such allocation. Balancing supply and demand. Water allocation plans needs to balance water supplies with demands, particularly to manage the natural variability of water availability and to avoid frequent or unexpected water shortfalls. The allocation also requires to keep in mind the demands You have to supply the water to meet the demand, particularly to manage the natural variability of water availability, because water is water availability varies with space as well as time, and to avoid the frequent or unexpected water shortfalls. This may create some unexpected and maybe some frequent water shortfalls. We have to keep in mind such a factor while allocating the water. Promoting the efficient use of water. Allocating water in a way that promotes the most efficient use of available water. The fresh water is available in a finite quantity. There needs to be an efficient use of water, available water for different purposes. So we have to promote the efficient use of water while allocating water for the different uses. Sharing water amongst competing users. Internationally, approaches to deciding on how water resources will be shared between different administrative regions have included approaches based on the following. When the water is to be shared with two or three nations, because the river may flow in different regions or the different countries or different states, then you have to take the following approaches while deciding the water allocation based on the for different administrative regions. Proportionate division, for example, based on physical characteristics of the basin or based on population living in or dependent on basin's water resources, you have to allocate the water on a proportional basis, because when the water flows through different states, the population of the different states may be different, or the area which contributes to that particular basin may be varying. Hence, the water is to be allocated depending on the physical characteristics of the basin, such as size, runoff, and other factors in each region, and also based on the population living in or dependent on the basin water resources. There may be some population which may dependent on the this particular basin for water resource. So you have to take into account all such factors, and the allocation is to be done proportionately. Existing use, for example, based on historic use, levels of dependency or current efficiency and productivity. The existing use is also to be considered while sharing the water among the competing users. For example, based on the historic use, there may be some use which is for the which is being used historically. Level of dependency, and also we have to look into the degree of dependency the community is dependent on that particular water resource, and the efficiency and the productivity of the current use of water. Future use, for example, based on the growth projections or to align with development planning, we have to also take into account the future uses depending on the population growth projections which are assessed for that particular basin. Also, we have to take into account the developmental planning which are planned in that particular in future particular basin for in future. Defining water entitlements. The key operative provisions of a water allocation plan or agreement are those that define the entitlements of different regions and water users. By way of allocation of water to a certain region or to a certain water users, we are giving them certain entitlements or the rights to use certain quantity of water, and the approaches to decide or to define the water entitlements have are, are included, are the following factors are included in defining the water entitlements. Mean annual or monthly diversions. Such approaches require a mechanism for converting the average volume into an actual volume that may be used based on the seasonal conditions. We have to take the physical characteristics of the resource, such as the mechanism for converting the average volume into an actual volume that may be used based on the seasonal conditions. The water availability is varying temporally, so based on the seasonal conditions, you have to assess the quantity available for the actual use rather than the average volume available in that particular basin. Minimum guaranteed volume, a volume of water that will be supplied in all conditions and ahead of other competing users. So we have to also assess the minimum guaranteed volume, the minimum volume of water that will be supplied in all conditions. So that quantity of water, that is the minimum quantity of water, is available at all the times as well as spatially and ahead of other competing users, and that much quantity of water is available for the basic use of the water. Caps on abstractions. An upper limit on abstractions regardless of water available in a particular year. So we have to put a limit on the abstractions regardless of the water available in a particular available. That means we have to put an upper limit to the extractions. That means the different allocations for the basic needs regardless of the water available in a particular year. Cross boundary flow requirements specified as a minimum daily, monthly or annual volume of water passing from one region to another region. So if we are considered a unit as a sub basin, then there is a main basin to which the water is supposed to flow or to pass from one region to another region. So we have to take into account the minimum daily, monthly or annual volume of water that has to pass from one region to another. Percentage of available flow, water shares defined based on shares of what is physically available in the river at a given time. So also we have to see the percentage of flow depending on the physically available quantity in the river at a given time. At a given time, we have to look into the quantity which is available physically in that particular basin rather than depending on the assessed or the estimated quantity of water available in that particular region. Sharing of tributaries. Where there are multiple shared tributaries, water may be allocated based on entitlement to the water in different tributaries. So as I said, if you are considering the basin, the sub basin as a unit, there may be many tributaries which are having the watersheds or the basins, and we are supposed to allocate the water entitlements based on the contribution of the different tributaries. No further development approach. Water shares defined based on infrastructure, entitlements and sharing rules in place at a particular point in time with no changes permitted that would increase the total water abstractions. So while allocating water also we have to keep in mind that the present scenario of the infrastructure, the developmental works, and we are allocating water for that purpose also, or and the sharing rules should also consider that it has to treat that there are no changes permitted that would increase the total water abstractions. So since water is available in a finite quantity in that particular region, we are allocating the water for different purposes. So we have to treat that given at that particular time what are the developments have taken place or what are planned in that particular time, that that and that are only to be considered, and no changes will be permitted, which increase the total abstractions from that particular basin. While allocating water, we have to deal with variability as well as with uncertainties. Dealing with variability in interannual and seasonal availability of water is one of the defining challenges of water allocation planning. So there is a challenge we have to face while allocating the water, because water availability varies with interannual as well as seasonally. This process may recognize the relative priority of different water users and can thus ensure that, particularly where less than the full water entitlement is available, different regions and user groups are affected by this in different ways. So when there is a scarcity of water, that means we are not getting the required quantity of water, or it is below the line of water demand, then we have to identify the relative priorities of the different water users and the regions or the user groups which are affected by the scarcity of water in different ways. Dealing with uncertainty. Current and future changes associated with socio-economic development and climate are characterized by high levels of uncertainty. In a particular basin, there may be some future changes which are very uncertain, and they are associated with socio-economic development as well as climatic changes, and they are characterized by high level of uncertainty. Uncertainty can relate to changes in average water availability, greater climatic variability, and limited information on the nature and impact of possible changes. Also, there is uncertainty in the available of water due to climatic variability, and also we are having the limited information on the nature and the impact of such possible climatic changes. Water allocation plans and regional watersheds need to be sufficiently robust to be able to cope with multiple future scenarios, including changes in water availability, water use efficiency, and water demands. So allocation need to consider, or it has to be, they have to be sufficiently robust to cope such scenarios as mentioned above, depending on the uncertainties, including changes in water availability, water use efficiencies, and water demands. Golden rules of allocation planning. Based on international experience, 10 golden rules of basin water allocation plan are identified, and they are as follows. In basin where water is becoming stressed, it is important to link allocation planning to broader social, environmental, and economic development planning. Where interbasin transfers are proposed, allocation planning also needs to link to plans related to that development. In basin where we are feeling the water stress conditions, it is important to link allocation of planning to broader social, environmental, and economic development. So we should to link the availability of the water or the allotment of water for the social, environmental, and economic development in that particular region, because we may be under the water stress conditions in that particular basin. Where interbasin transfers are proposed, allocation planning also need to link to plans related to that development. So when there are some basin transfers projects or proposals are considered or they are planned, then allocation planning, allocation of the water also needs to link to such transfer of water plannings. Successful basin allocation process depend on existence of adequate institutional capacity. Also, the successful allocation process depends on the adequate institutional capacity. It depends on the capacity of the institutions which are dealing with the allocation. The degree of complexity in an allocation plan should reflect the complexity and challenges in the basin. So the allocation complexities, the degree of the complexities should be reflect the complexity and challenges in that particular basin. Allocation plans need to have a clear and equitable approach for addressing variability between years and seasons. The plan should also consider an approach and it has to be an equitable approach for addressing the variability between years and seasons. As the water availability varies between years and seasons, the allocation approach should be equitable depending on the availability of water during that variable seasons. Allocation plans need to incorporate flexibility in recognition of uncertainty over the medium to long term in respect of changing climate and economic and social circumstances. So the allocation of water also has to incorporate or to keep in mind, or it has to recognize the uncertainty, and it should be more flexible to accommodate this, keeping in mind the medium to long term changing climate and economic and social circumstances. A clear process is required for converting regional water shares into local and individual and water entitlements, and for clearly defining annual allocations. A clear process is required which has to convert the regional water shares into local and individual water entitlements of that particular region, and also clearly define the annual allocations. Let us see the role of local institutions and community-based organization in water governance. In India today, there are a large number of village level user groups formed under various development programs of the state governments, most of which function independently of the Panchayat Raj institutions, but on the subjects assigned to them under the constitution. So today we are having number of village level user groups formed, and they are acting independently of the Panchayat Raj institutions, and they are meant for different purposes subject to subjects assigned to them under the constitution. So the purpose is to limited to the subjects assigned to them under the constitutions, and they are independent of the Panchayat Raj institutions. These user groups include water user associations. So the groups which are formed in the village level are the water user associations, watershed development committees, village forest committees, village forest protection committees, and self-help groups, etc. are the some of the user groups which are being formed at village levels. There is a general perception that ultimately Panchayat Raj institutions are administrative units and may not be suitable organization for vesting of sole responsibilities for specific resource management activities in a geographically demarcated area. So there is a perception that ultimately the Panchayat Raj institutions are the administrative units, and but these administrative units and the Panchayat Raj institutions are not suitable organization for vesting of sole responsibilities for specific resource management activities in a geographically demarcated area. So once we have demarcated the area geographically by a watershed or a basin, then the the Panchayat Raj institutions are not the sole, they cannot take the sole responsibility for specific resource management activities. Hence, there is a need to form the different users association. Panchayat versus user groups. Some common perceptions are as follows. Panchayats are statutory bodies, user groups are short-lived. So panchayatis are statutory bodies, that means they are the constitutionally organizations of the institutes which are statutory, but user groups are short-lived. The user groups may be of the nature of a short period. Panchayats interact with many departments, user groups only with funding department. So panchayat institutions deal with many departments, while the user groups deal with only the funding department or the agencies of the government which are involved to guide them or to fund them. Like the watersheds, they may deal with only the irrigation department or the agriculture department. Panchayats give representations to women, SC, STs. User groups may not give representation. So Panchayat gives representation to in its all functions for women, SC, SCs and STs, but user groups may not need to give such representation. Bureaucracy favors user groups as they are more amenable to bureaucratic controls than the panchayats. The bureaucrats also feel that the user groups are more amenable to their control rather than the panchayats. Panchayats cover many villages and ignore small villages. Panchayats are interested in patronage, not participation. Panchayats are based on conflict, whereas development requires consensus. So many times panchayats lead to some conflicts because the members will be having different interests, but the user groups take care of development and the consensus among themselves for the that particular purpose. User groups create a broader leadership based user groups create a broader leadership base and provide an opportunity for more people to be involved in decision making. User groups are creating a leadership platform and also an opportunity for the people to be involved in decision making process. Formal user groups for water management and the Panchayat Raj institutions. Several states in the recent past have come up with major policy and legal initiatives that have transferred some responsibility of irrigation management from government agencies to water users association. Already you have seen that there is water management transfer to the water users association, and already many states have framed their policies and legal initiatives to transfer some or many responsibilities to the of the irrigation management to the WES. In fact, under the new laws created for PIM, the managing committees of the WES at the primary, distributory, and the project levels are to be constituted by electoral politics similar to that panchayats. So already you have seen under the PIM, that is participatory irrigation management, that the different committees are formed at different levels of the WES, and they are similarly, the process is being similarly on the electoral process as developed for the panchayat institutions. Task force of the MORD that has recommended vesting all powers of the three types of panchayat raj institutions in relation to forest and water management. But the task force of the Ministry of Rural Development of Union Government has recommended to vest all the powers or to give all the powers to the three-tier system of the Panchayat Raj institution, that may be the Gram Panchayat or the Mandal Panchayat, the Taluk Panchayat and the Jilla Panchayat in relation to the forest and water management. The task force states or recommends to give all the powers to the three-tier system of the PRIs regarding forest and water management. Provisions on minor irrigation in state panchayat laws. So state panchayat laws have also formed or framed for the provision of minor irrigation or managing the minor irrigation systems. The provisions relating to minor irrigation forms an important part of the water management and distribution provisions of the panchayat acts. So there are provisions are made in relation to the minor irrigation management in the Panchayat Raj Acts. The Panchayat system of administration being a three-tier system, the functions relating to minor irrigation are allocated to the intermediary tier. Since the Panchayat Raj system involves three-tier system, as I mentioned, that may be Mandal Panchayat, then Taluk Panchayat and Jilla Panchayat. The functions relating to the minor irrigation are allocated to the intermediate tier, that is the Taluk Panchayats. For instance, under the Karnataka Panchayat Raj Act 1993, it is the Taluk Panchayats that has been given the function of assisting the government and Jilla Panchayat in the construction and maintenance of minor irrigation works. Under the Tripura Panchayats Act 1993, minor irrigation, water management and watershed development are functions which have been allocated to the Panchayati Samiti. However, in some cases, it is also the Gram Panchayats that have been made responsible for minor irrigation, but in such cases, the area of usage of such projects are delimited. So, different states have adopted different policies. In Karnataka, we are having a act which involves the Taluk Panchayats to look after the minor irrigation works. In Tripura, there they have formed Panchayat Committees to take care of such activities. And however, in some of the states, some Gram Panchayats have also been entrusted to manage the minor irrigation works, but there the area of usage is limited. Uh, is limited. Under the Rajasthan Panchayat Raj Act 1994, the functions of the Gram Panchayat include control and maintenance of tanks, irrigation up to 50 meters. So, in Rajasthan Panchayat Act, they formulated an act for the Gram Panchayats which include the maintenance of the tanks, small tanks and the minor tanks, which irrigate up to only a length of 50 meters. Similarly, the Kerala Panchayat Act 1994 incorporates within the performance of functions by Gram Panchayat the construction and maintenance of minor irrigation schemes and lift irrigation schemes benefiting up to 5 hectares within the Panchayat. So, in Kerala, they have formed an act where the minor irrigation acts rest with the Gram Panchayats, but they are restricted to 5 hectares. However, when it comes to the role of PRIs in these programs, there is more confusion and clarity, but somehow still there are many confusions persist in the systems or the acts which are formulated for the PRIs. Over the years, notwithstanding the constitutional requirement of empowering panchayats for watershed development, there has been a proliferation of user groups and informal village associations carrying out watershed management at the local levels. Even though the constitutional provisions state that panchayats are empowered for watershed development, but still in practice there are many user groups and informal village associations which carry out the watershed management at the local levels. The guidelines for watershed development issued by the Union Ministry of Rural Development in 2001, while granting the significance of involving the PRIs and conceding that they have very important role and that they shall be fully involved, failed to suggest as to how this role could be precisely determined both for village level implementation and district level monitoring of the watershed development program. Even though the Union Ministry of Rural Development MORD in 2001, while granting, stated that the PRIs play a very important role and they shall be fully involved for the watershed managements, but they have failed to suggest how this role can be precisely determined both for the village level implementation and the district level monitoring units. Somehow the MORD states that the PRIs have the greater responsibility in the watershed management, but it has failed to suggest how this can be done. Apart from the WAs, watershed associations may also be briefly looked at for the kind of participatory structures. So we have seen that water use associations are treated as the units of participatory irrigation management or the PIM. Similarly, the watershed associations can also may be treated as the participatory structures involved in the management. Watersheds operationalize the concept of integrated water resource management in India. So watersheds operationalizes the concept of integrated water resource management in India. Watershed program is enhancing productivity of land and water resources on the basis of scientifically defined watershed that connotes a geographical unit rather than an economic or administrative unit. So, watershed is a scientifically defined geographical unit which contributes the precipitation falling in that area to the that particular stream or basin which consists of the watershed rather than an economic or the administrative unit. So it is not defined by an administrative unit, but it is scientifically defined a geographical unit denoting a watershed, and the programs of this watershed enhance the productivity of the land and water resources in that particularly defined geographical area. Watershed management provisions in the Panchayat laws. The watershed provisions are similar to minor irrigation in as much in most cases the functions related to this are to be performed by Jilla Parishads or Panchayat Samitis. As we have already discussed, some of the minor irrigation activities or the systems are managed by the three-tier system of the Panchayat Raj institutions, that is Jilla Parishad or Panchayat Samitis. Similarly, the watersheds are also managed by the Jilla Panchayats or the Panchayat Samitis. The provisions relating to minor water bodies are mostly vested at higher or intermediate level of the administration. Thus, the provisions relating to minor water bodies are vested or they are provided with the intermediate level, that is the Taluka Panchayats, or the higher level, the Jilla Panchayats level of the administration. Rural water supply and the Panchayats. A national level rural water supply scheme proposed that the centre funds the scheme suggested by the Panchayat by 90%, and the Panchayat proposing the scheme will put remaining 10%. Under national level rural water supply scheme, the Panchayats are supposed to suggest the project, and the central government will fund 90% to the Panchayats, and the remaining 10% is to be shared by the Panchayat which proposes the scheme. Experiments in the pilot phase of the scheme in some states suggest that the institutional mechanism envisaged by the scheme has a village level water supply committee as its cornerstone, which should be generating the demand for specific water supply scheme while being responsible for its implementation. In the pilot phase, the experiments done with the scheme, we suggested that the scheme should have a village level water supply committee as its cornerstone. It should consist of a village level water supply committee which will which is responsible for generating the demand for a specific scheme, and also it is responsible for its implementation. Provisions on rural water supply in the state panchayat laws. A majority of the provisions relating to drinking water are similar sounding. So there are provisions in the rural water supply in the state panchayat laws. Thus, under the Karnataka Panchayat Raj Act 1993, the functions of the Gram Panchayats as specified includes construction, repairs and maintenance of drinking water wells, tanks and ponds. So, under Karnataka Panchayat Raj Act, the Gram Panchayats are vested with the powers to construction, repairs and maintenance of drinking water wells, tanks and ponds. Similarly, under the Assam Panchayat Act 1994, one of the functions of the Gram Panchayat is construction, repair and maintenance of drinking water wells, tanks and ponds and tube wells. Thank you.